To begin with, we have the Ariel Poems, a series of short illustrated poems published between 1927 and 1954. These were written for Faber and Faber's Special Christmas series, and Eliot contributed several, including his most famous piece, Journey of the Magi from 1927, a date that has been asked in exam. Now, let's step into the poem itself. Journey of the Magi reflects Eliot's personal Christian conversion, which also took place in that same year, and that connection between the poem and his conversion has been tested in exam. The poem is narrated by one of the Magi, who recalls their long and painful journey to witness the birth of Christ, and this narrative perspective has also been asked in exam. The opening line is unforgettable. A cold coming we had of it. This line itself has been asked in exam, so keep it memorized. Immediately, it sets a tone of hardship, discomfort, and human weariness. The Magi travel through icy landscapes, feeling doubt and confusion, yet driven by divine purpose. The imagery of winter here symbolizes death and spiritual desolation, while the birth of Christ represents renewal and rebirth, and this symbolic contrast has also been asked in exam. On the surface, it is the biblical story of the Magi, but on a deeper level, it's Eliot's own reflection on the agony and beauty of spiritual transformation. One haunting repetition stands out. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us. This line too has appeared in exam. It captures the paradox of spiritual rebirth, painful yet necessary for salvation. Through its tone of exhaustion and revelation, Journey of the Magi mirrors Eliot's evolving faith, marking a key milestone in his religious poetry. So, when you think of the Ariel Poems, remember that they're not just decorative verses. They reveal a man stepping away from despair and toward belief. Now, moving to Eliot's next major work, Ash Wednesday, published in 1930, and this title itself has been asked in exam. This poem was written after his conversion to Anglicanism in 1927, a life-changing event that shaped the rest of his career. Ash Wednesday is deeply introspective. It expresses Eliot's spiritual struggle and his gradual acceptance of Christian faith. The opening line, "Because I do not hope to turn again," sets a tone of resignation and humility, and this very line has been asked in exam. Written during the Great Depression, the poem reflects a broader cultural mood, a time when society too was questioning its purpose and searching for redemption. Eliot uses the journey from despair to faith as a symbol of the soul's renewal. The poem contrasts the dust of human frailty with the light of divine vision, showing the pull between the earthly and the spiritual. You'll also notice the refrain, "Lady, 3 white leopards sat under a juniper tree," a line steeped in mystical symbolism, and yes, this has been tested in exam. It's an image of both death and purification, echoing the themes of sacrifice and grace. By the end of the poem, the speaker prays, "Suffer us not to mock ourselves with falsehood." There's a sense of surrender, of finally finding peace through faith. Ash Wednesday thus represents Eliot's full embrace of spirituality, and it stands as one of his most personal, prayer-like poems. Now, after such intense spiritual poetry, we turn to a very different side of Eliot, his delightful collection, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, published in 1939, and yes, that publication year has been asked in exam. This collection shows Eliot's playful humor and love for language. He wrote these poems initially for the amusement of his godchildren and friends, and this family-oriented purpose has been noted in exam. Inspired by his keen observation of cats, Eliot created a cast of whimsical feline characters, each with its own quirks and charm. Written during the tense years leading up to World War II, the book offered a moment of light-hearted joy amidst global anxiety. One of the most famous lines from the book is, "The naming of cats is a difficult matter," which of course has also been tested in exam. Through witty rhymes and character sketches, Eliot presents cats as mirrors of human behavior, proud, vain, mischievous, mysterious, and full of personality. Characters like Jellicle Cats, Old Deuteronomy, Room Tum Thugger, Macavity, Mr. Mistopheles, and Skimbleshanks each have distinct traits. Macavity, the Napoleon of crime, has become iconic, and this character has been asked in exam too. Mr. Mistopheles dazzles with his magical charm, while Rum Tum Tugger embodies rebellion and flair. In fact, this book's lasting popularity led to the legendary Broadway musical Cats in 1981, one of the longest running shows in history. Eliot's verses proved that poetry could be fun, rhythmic, and full of imagination without losing literary depth. Four Quartets by T.S. Eliot. This remarkable work consists of 4 long poems, each exploring the timeless dialogue between human experience and divine order. The first of them, Burnt Norton, appeared earlier in 1936 as part of collected poems, and yes, that publication detail has been asked in exam. The remaining 3, East Coker, The Dry Salvages, and Little Gidding, were written during the dark years of the Second World War, and this historical context has also been noted in exam. Originally issued separately between 1940 and 1942 by Faber and Faber, these poems were later gathered into a single volume in 1943 by Eliot's New York publisher. The sequence meditates on time, the universe, and the presence of the divine, blending Anglo-Catholic faith with Eastern and Western philosophies, a spiritual synthesis that has been tested in exam. Eliot draws from the Bhagavad Gita, the pre-Socratic philosophers, and the mystic Julian of Norwich. These references have appeared in exam too, so note them carefully. Critics often call Four Quartets Eliot's final masterpiece, admired for its philosophical and mystical depth. Yet, not everyone praised it. George Orwell once criticized its intense religiosity, showing how polarizing Eliot's spiritual turn had become. According to critic C.K. Stead, the framework of Four Quartets follows 5 spiritual and artistic movements, and every one of these has appeared in exam. First, the movement of time, where brief flashes of eternity are caught. Second, worldly experience that leads inevitably to dissatisfaction. Third, purgation, in which the soul detaches from the love of created things. Fourth, a lyric prayer, affirming the need for intercession. And finally, the struggle for artistic wholeness, which mirrors the search for spiritual health. Together, these layers form not just a poem, but a map of human redemption. The 4 poems, Burnt Norton, East Coker, The Dry Salvages, and Little Gidding, each correspond to one element of existence: air, earth, water, and fire. Keep that symbolic connection in mind. It often becomes a hidden clue in exam questions. We begin with Burnt Norton. The poem takes its name from an actual house in the Cotswold Hills of Gloucestershire, which Eliot visited in the summer of 1934, and that visit here has been mentioned in exam. Its setting, a rose garden, becomes a meditative space where the poet reflects on unrealized possibilities and the stillness within time. Interestingly, the opening lines are adapted from Eliot's play Murder in the Cathedral, performed in 1935, a fact directly asked in exam. Listen closely to these lines, for they too have appeared in exam. Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time, future, and time, future contained in time past. Through this circular meditation, Eliot invites us to sense the eternal moment that underlies change. Next comes East Coker. Written in a strong stress meter and divided into 5 parts, it contemplates cycles of birth, decay, and renewal. The poem takes its title from a hamlet in Somersetshire, Eliot's ancestral home. His forebears sailed from this very place to America in the 1660s. Eliot revisited the village in 1937, and that visit inspired the poem's imagery. For us, there is only the trying. The rest is not our business. It's a line that perfectly captures the humility of spiritual striving. The third poem, The Dry Salvages, continues the meditative pattern. The title refers to a group of rocks off Cape Ann, Massachusetts, a site Eliot knew from his childhood visits, and this detail about location has appeared in exam. Here, Eliot uses the Atlantic Ocean and the Mississippi River as vast metaphors for time and human journey imagery that has been spotted in exam. He writes, "But to apprehend the point of intersection of the timeless with time is an occupation for the saint." These lines remind us how rare it is to glimpse eternity within the ordinary. Finally, we reach Little Gidding, the closing movement of the quartet. Its completion was delayed because Eliot's health had begun to decline, a biographical note that has been asked in exam, yet he finished it by September 1942 after early drafts left him dissatisfied. Named after a small religious community in Huntingdonshire, Little Gidding links the sufferings of World War II with spiritual purification, a contrast between bombing and the Holy Spirit, which has indeed been questioned in exam. Through the fire of destruction, Eliot sees divine love as redemptive. The poem echoes the comforting words of Julian of Norwich, "All shall be well," and this quotation has been cited in exam. In its final movement, Eliot fuses art, faith, and human responsibility, showing that the making of poetry and the shaping of the soul are ultimately one endeavor.